Welcome everyone to Gamer Meld. I know what you're thinking. Ugh, not this ugly face again. And I get it. Trust me, I've got to wake up to this face every single day. But if it helps, the reason why is actually because I have a whole bunch of videos that I'm really behind on that I'm working on that should be releasing in the next few days. Anyway, in today's video, I've got a bunch of Ryzen 3000 benchmarks as well as an updated Ryzen 3000 review that uses the X570 motherboard. And could Navi be better than RTX Super? But first, consider donating to the GamerMeld Patreon. I'm actually going to be sending out these Athlon 64 X2s in about the next week or two. I have a few here, but quite a bit more of them I'm going to be sending out as part of the rewards program. For those who don't know, every 3 months of successful patronage, $5 GamerMeld patrons are going to get a sweet gift. This is one of them. I haven't announced what the next gift is going to be, but it will be another CPU that's important throughout history. Just make sure that you subscribe before the 1st of next month. Okay, let's get to the news. First up, we have some CPU benchmarks from Passmark, and a quick thank you to the Meld Militia. Make sure to send any kind of tips or leaks or anything like that to tip@gamermeld.com. And let's go down here. As you can see, we have the Ryzen 7 3700X. And it may look like it's doing really bad. I mean, rank 24. But there's something really important to note here. If we look over here, it's $329. Let's start going up. 2200, 2700, 2000, 2000. 4,000. These are mostly Xeons right here. Not that big of a difference though, might I add. Especially since we're talking $329. Oh look, 787. Oh wait, but that's another AMD part. That's Threadripper. Okay. 1,000, 6,000. Ooh, now that is significantly better, but man. Not so much better that it's worth that cost, or at least to the average consumer, obviously. And these aren't even consumer. The Xeon platform isn't even for consumers. They're server chips, but regardless, massive difference. That's just something that I find really interesting. And it's one of the reasons Ryzen has really changed the game. And moving on along, we have single core performance. And as you can see, we once again have the 3700X. Now, before you get a little bit upset that it's actually under the 3600 single core performance, since my video where I discussed this, I've talked to some people and I do believe that it was likely cooled under liquid nitrogen. Now, the reason that that could get that high and say the 9900K wouldn't get higher than its score is because I do believe that these are average from quite a bit of different benchmarks, so the lower stock clocks are going to bring that down. But since this is likely the only 3600 score, with it being 1 that's liquid nitrogen, or even if it's 2, it wouldn't bring it down enough, that would explain why it's so high, yet the 3700X isn't. Hopefully the 3700X was using stock, and if that's the case, I will say that it does do fairly well. Once again, this is a $329 CPU, and it actually beats out its biggest competitor that, as you can see, is quite a bit more expensive, the 9700K. So at stock, it should still be very well and should perform admirably, especially since we should be able to get the 3600 quite a bit higher with overclocking. Obviously, if this is liquid nitrogen, it won't get, to this level, but it should get pretty high. And next up, we have 3D Mark's Firestrike Extreme. And as you can see, this is once again the 3700X, the 8 cores, 16 threads CPU. And the most important thing here, while it did get a 12,575, the most important thing here is the physics score of 25,011. Now, as you can see, WCCF Tech actually did their own benchmarking with the 9900K. Now, this is their scores. This is what they received. I do believe that they used a 2080, but based on what they got in this same Firestrike Extreme scenario, they received a 24,596. Once again, this is versus, we're talking about physics score here, which is really the part that matters for the CPU. The 3700X got 25,011. Wow. Pretty much the first time we ever see this. And once again, we are talking about the 3700X, which is a $329 CPU. So much cheaper. We're talking nearly $200 cheaper than Intel's counterpart that it's actually comparing it to. And it actually beat it in this score. Let's see. Next up, we have CloudGate. Once again, 3700X. and its physics score is 17,484. Now, the 9900K did beat it here. It beat it by a little bit over 1,000 points. Yeah, around 1,400 points, actually. So, I mean, it did pretty well, but at the same time, the 3700X did pretty well against it as well. Next, and this is what's going to be interesting here, next, we have Ice Storm Extreme. Its physics score was an 82,381. Now, let's go right back. 82,831 versus 74,107. Pretty big difference here. And once again, much cheaper CPU. Okay. Let's see. Now we have kind of got to go through all of these. Night Raid, 13,487. 13,487. So it's basically tit for tat right here. We have AMD's 3700X winning, losing, winning, losing. So really great. Ultimately, once again, when we're talking price to performance. Next, okay. For those who don't remember, I covered the first ever Ryzen 3000 review. Almost every, I guarantee you, they have a supplier from somewhere within AMD, but basically pretty much every Ryzen launch, El Chapuzits Informatica gets to do a really early review. And that's awesome for us. And to be honest, a lot of times they are pretty accurate. This time, unlike last time where they did the X470, which is the review that I covered, they did X570. So let's go over that. Now I will go ahead and tell you, unfortunately, they weren't able to overclock, and that more has to do with their drivers than anything else. But let's take a look. In Cinebench, you can see they got, let's pull it up, see if we can make it a little bit bigger. Okay, they got 1,574 versus 1,561 on the X470. So a little bit of a difference, but not much. Then we go into, see, I mean, this right here, I would actually call a margin of error. I mean, this difference is pretty much nothing. Now, you could even make pretty much the same argument for the difference between this and the 9900K. Very little, very, very little. Let's just put it that way. Much bigger jump. You know, we're talking about 21 points from the 2700X to the 3600. And once again, this is stock 3600. This is the base model here. Now, this is where things get a little odd. Okay, well, first off, this got slightly better. Okay, so this is your memory latency right here. This got slightly better, 75.8 versus the original 80.5. The biggest issue that I saw with their first benchmark was issues with memory. So that improved a little bit, although it's still nowhere near the 2700X, and it should actually be better. So we will have to wait for reviews on the 7th for that, but let's see. And then once again, the actual memory speed did horribly. I mean, we're looking at an old Athlon right here. I mean, it just handled it really, really horribly. So let's see. What was the one? Okay. So we're on games. Sorry about that. So we have games right here. Little to no difference. And you can actually take this as a good or bad thing, but I'll get to that in just 1 second. You can see that it performed fairly well. Definitely beat out the 2700X, although only a few FPS. Far Cry, massive difference. Massive difference. $200 CPU. It did. Now this is quite a bit older, 6700K, but regardless, far better than the 2700X. Let's see, so I mean, there is some significant difference right here, but once again, I really, really want to see once we get at least beta drivers. Then we have Final Fantasy, not much of a difference, really not much of a difference between any of it. Now, this actually brings me to the positive here. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know that the X570 is supposedly not meant to replace the X470. It's actually meant to be more of a premium offering. So this tells us that the 470 can do just as well as the X570, even though there's a big price difference. And for those who already own an X470 board, you won't really have to upgrade. Now, the X570 will more than likely come into play whenever it comes to overclocking, but you still get great performance here. Next up, Okay, so this is the first bit of news that we have that has nothing to do with Ryzen. Nvidia has confirmed that they're going to be working with Samsung to manufacture their Ampere GPUs. Now, this is their next generation graphics cards. For those who don't remember, there was actually a story a little while back that Intel was potentially going to Samsung to manufacture some of their CPUs, but come to find out it was actually some really low-level stuff. Either way, the biggest bit of news here is the fact that they are working with 7nm, not only regular 7nm, but extreme ultraviolet lithography. So Nvidia really may see a huge jump from their current 12nm Turing GPUs to Ampere. I mean, this is a really efficient process. It's something they've been promising for forever. Finally, there's been a couple companies that have actually been able to do it, like TSMC, but this is pretty big. I am definitely excited for 2020 if that's when they're going to do it. And speaking of Nvidia, Tom Apisak, the ultimate in benchmark finding geniuses, has apparently found a benchmark from Ashes of the Singularity on the crazy preset at 1440p. And I know he's not actually showing it here, but if there's anyone that you can trust, Tom Apisak is probably one of them. Anyway, as you can see, the 2070S got a score of 6800, yet the 5700 XT got a score of 6400, so not very far off. What's even more interesting is that the 5700, which remember that the 2060S is actually more expensive, and the 5700 was already cheaper than the regular 2060, and the 2060S is $50 more, actually beat it. So a lot of people have actually kind of counted out Navi, but there actually is a chance, at least in this space, that they can compete. Now, will they be able to compete with the 2080 Ti with the Radeon 7? No, they really won't. Because that card's already out. We already know what it can do, and pretty much any kind of boost in performance, no. But as you can see, the 5700 XT and 5700 can compete. I mean, yes, I do understand that this is not at the level, and this is one of the biggest things. RTX cards do offer a bit more incentive with the fact that they offer ray tracing. But regardless, this is a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I mean, obviously AMD can lower the prices a little bit and make it just a little bit more worth it. But not bad at all. Anyway, that pretty much does it for today. And I do apologize for all the rambling. I know I'm kind of blah, 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 just go on and on. But I really wanted to make this video for you guys, and doing it my normal format, it would have been really hard, and I probably wouldn't have been able to do some of the videos that I have planned coming up. And trust me, they're going to be really cool, going to be interesting, going to answer questions that you may have. Got to be pretty vague, but just look forward to it. Make sure that you subscribe and consider donating to the Patreon. Anyway, thanks so much for coming. Have a great day.